Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be trying out an eyeshadow palette from a new brand to me, which is What's Up Beauty. I have seen so many good things about this brand, and particularly this palette. This is the Geodes palette from them. It's not a new palette, but it is new to me, and I bought this actually a few months ago, but I still haven't gotten around to pulling it out and playing with it. So I thought I would film it today, and that way, in case any of you are interested in the palette, you can see some swatches and my first impressions. I know I've seen What's Up Beauty running some sales lately, so if you are interested in the palette, you might keep an eye out for that. But I'm looking forward to just playing with some eyeshadow. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos on my channel, so if that sounds like fun to you, then just keep on watching. Alright, so even though the palette is kind of old news, I'm still going to do some swatches just because I always like doing swatches when I get a new palette so that I can get a sense of the shades and the formulas. So if you've seen these swatches 1,000 times, you can just skip ahead to the next part of the video when I'm going to put a look together on my eyes. But for those of you who want to see swatches, or if you find swatching relaxing, hopefully this will be nice to watch for you. I'm just going to go row by row and start swatching on my arms so that we can get a sense of what kinds of formulations are in here. But from what I can tell, just from looking at the palette, it looks like all of the shimmers are pretty similar in formulation, but I guess we'll see that more when we swatch. And then it looks like there's a pretty standard matte formulation in here. I've seen people wearing these shimmers though, and the payoff looks incredible. So I'm really excited to see how these perform in the swatches and on the eyes. But mainly, this color story just drew me in from the moment that I saw this palette. I love the Geodes theming, that there's different gems slash crystals that are represented by the colors in here. And it just looks really interesting. It's not a color story that I feel like I've seen in a million other palettes before. So let's go ahead and start with some swatches. All right, so first up we have the shade Rock. I'm gonna go over that one again just so I can see it a little bit better and you can see it a little bit better, but it looks like a really nice kind of taupey, warm, neutral brown, but pretty light still. Then we have the first shimmer in the palette. This is called Crystal. And when I swatched it and put my finger in the pan, it did look a little bit flaky. Wow, this swatch, I can't really see it super well because of my lights, but just from what I'm seeing in the viewfinder, it looks wet on my hand. Wow, that is really, really pretty. It's almost like it shifts really warm, like a rose gold, but then when I shift it back the other way, it's more of like a pinky purple with some blue shimmers in it. That is stunning. Then we have the shade Amethyst, which is another shimmer. This one again seems to have that kind of warmer rose gold, more golden than rose gold kind of a flip, but it's got some magenta and purple to it. So far these shimmers are looking really fine, like the glitter particles in the shades themselves are actually really, really tiny. And then we have the shade Citrine, which I'm hoping you can see against my skin tone, but it's like a really light yellow. A light yellow with golden flecks in it. This looks like it might be a really nice inner corner shade or maybe even like a topper shade. And then the last two on the top row, we have Peridot, which is a really pretty kind of tealy minty green shimmer. Seems to have a lot of blue in it as well. And then we have Clay, which is a mossy green matte. I think that was also what drew me to this palette, was that the mattes, I mean obviously the shimmers look stunning, but the mattes are in really unique shades and the exact kind of shades that I love to wear on my eyes. Neutrals, but just like a little bit of a, almost like a desaturated effect. I don't really know exactly what I even mean by that, but maybe you will be able to see what I mean when you look at the palette. It's like The green is not quite a green. It's still very neutral and grungy. Maybe grungy is the word I'm looking for. Can someone help me? What am I trying to say? They're grungy. They're not the same neutral mattes that you see in every palette. I don't know. It's just a really fun mix of shimmers that are very bright and vibrant and unique with mattes that are a little bit more toned down and grungy. All right, the next two shimmers are Rose Quartz and Agate. So Rose Quartz is definitely a baby pink. I'm trying to see if it has any sort of a shift to it. I think the shift is a little bit more silvery than some of the other ones. Doesn't do that warm flip that some of the other ones do. Agate, though, definitely has that warm rose gold tone to it. But again, very kind of thin, fine, not dense shimmers, if that makes sense. They're going on more like sparkly topper shades than really creamy saturated shimmers. All right, and then for the last four shades, we have one more shimmer and three mattes. So this one is Rhodonite. Just went over that again, so hopefully you can see a little better. It's kind of like a rosy brown. And then we have Earthlike, which looks like an amazing take on a blue to brown shimmer. This might be what I use on my eyes today because I just love those kinds of shades. And then we have Lava, which is that grungy mustardy yellow. And finally, Terra, which is a deep dark brown matte. So here is the palette all swatched out. Very kind of casual, messy swatches there, as per usual on this channel. So I'm kind of trying to think of what I want to do. My first instinct is to use that shade, the blue to brown shade, that actually has quite a bit of mauve and purple in it, called Earthlike, and pairing that with some of the mattes and maybe one other shimmer. But I feel like there's a lot of ways you could go with this palette, which is another reason why I think it's such a nice color story. You could go green and yellow, you could go purpley pink, you could go a little bit more orangey and mix those tones together too. So if you'd like to see a 3 looks 1 palette with this palette, let me know, because I would love to challenge myself to find a bunch of different ways you can use this palette to create very unique looks. But for today, let me zoom you in a little bit and let's put a look together. So I've got all of my base makeup on. The only thing I have done to my eyes is put on a primer. I'm using the Ulta Beauty Matte Eye Primer. I really, really like this stuff. And then I just set that down with my face powder. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the shade Lava, which is that mustardy yellow. Can you see me? Do we need to come in a little bit more? Maybe just a little bit more. So I'm taking that shade Lava on a pretty big fluffy brush, and I'm just going to start putting that through my crease. So this shade and the shade Rhodonite, which is that kind of pinkier neutral brown shade, those two and the pairing of them in the same palette together reminds me a little bit of the ColourPop and Mandalorian palette, which is a pretty cool tone palette, but it does have that mustardy yellow with a more sort of rosy, pinky toned neutral brown. And I really like the way that those two shades pair with each other in that palette. So I think that's what I'm going to do to start off my eye look with this palette too, just to create a nice warm little crease as a base for some of these shimmers. All right, so I'm going to take Rhodonite on a slightly smaller but still fluffy brush. There is a little bit of kick up when I'm sticking my brush into these pans, but I actually kind of like that in my mattes, so that doesn't bother me at all, but just something to note, because I know people have different eyeshadow preferences. And I'm just going to place this a little bit more in my true crease, so lower down and then out toward my outer corner a bit, but blending it up into the yellow. And that's actually going on very rosy, which I think is good to have in this palette to pair with all of these pinky purpley toned shades. I think it would go beautifully with all of those warmer pinkier slash rose gold shades. Just going back in with that first brush to blend those two colors together. So far, I am really enjoying the matte formula. As I mentioned, it does have a little bit of kick up, which to me typically reminds me of something like the Anastasia Beverly Hills formulation, which is a little bit drier and a little bit more powdery, but I love a drier, more powdery matte formulation, so this is great news for me. But for those of you who are used to more concentrated application of your mattes, or, you know, more saturated matte formulas like Natasha Denona, yeah, think of like an Anastasia Beverly Hills or maybe even like a ColourPop formula. That's what this formula reminds me of. Blending really well into each other as well, at least so far. All right, I am absolutely loving this blend and these tones together so far. So I think I want to deepen this up slightly. I'm going to take the same brush into the shade Rock, and I might mix a little bit of Terra into that as well, just to get a little bit of depth going on the outer corner. So I'm taking Rock and seeing how that will build on this outer corner area. I hope you can't hear the literal chainsaw that's happening outside. I have no idea what is going on out there, but I really hope you can't hear it. I just dipped my brush into a little bit of Terra as well, just to deepen things up even more. I feel like I'm seeing a tiny bit of fallout, but I think that's actually not from the shadow. I think it must have been like a piece of lint on my brush or something. I'm loving the way this is looking. These are blending so nicely together. So I'm just going to repeat that on the other eye. I feel like that's created a really nice, soft, subtle, sort of warm smoke that I love. So now I think because these are a little bit more of that flaky shimmer texture, that my best bet is going to be to go in with the NYX Glitter Primer. All right, my water spilled all over me and my desk. So if things look a little bit different, that's why. But I think I was saying I'm just going to put a little bit of the NYX Glitter Primer all over my lid. And then I'm going to go in first with the shade Earth-like. And then I think for the inner corner, I'm debating between Crystal and Rose Quartz. I feel like if I do Crystal, it's going to make it really purpley, but it might blend in well with Earth-like. Let's try it. I think let's try Earth-like and Crystal, and then if I feel like it's getting too purpley, I'll put a little bit of Rose Quartz over the top. All right, so NYX Glitter Primer, I use about that much for my lid, and even that's probably more than you need. You really only need a teeny tiny amount of this stuff. If you put too much on, your eyeshadow is much more likely to crease, so try to just use as little as you can get away with while still getting the shimmers to stick. And then just a really thin layer of that. Yeah, even that amount was already too much, so I'm not going to put everything that was on my finger on my lid. I'm going to use a clean finger to help blend it out. And then I'm just taking my finger into Earth-like, and I'm going to press that into the glitter primer. Ooh! Are you all seeing this? It is gorgeous. I kind of want to pull that all over the lid, but I'm not going to. I'm going to reserve a little bit of space in this inner part for Crystal. So taking a different finger. I don't know if that recorded because my camera stopped recording, but I just took my finger, a clean finger, into the shade Crystal, and that really makes an impact. I'm going to take a little bit more Earth-like and just kind of blend the two together a little bit more. That is stunning. I think I am just going to take a little bit of Rose Quartz for the very inner corner and kind of blend that up into the Crystal shade. So the inner corner is looking really pink, and then it kind of morphs into a purpley blue with a brown base across my lid. I can definitely say I don't have any shades quite like this in my collection. So pretty. So I'm gonna try to repeat that on the other eye real quick. All right, and then I just kind of want to clean up those edges. So I'm just gonna take one of my blending brushes and go around those shimmers to make sure that they are blended in. I might take a little touch of the deepest brown shade, Terra, just to re-intensify the outer corner here. But it doesn't really need it because that shade Earth-like is so dimensional. I would say fallout is pretty minimal with the NYX glitter primer. I feel like I did a little bit of a messy application, so I do have a little bit of fallout under here, but if you used a brush with these, it might be easier to keep all of that clean underneath the eye, but I think I'm gonna end up putting some shimmer under there anyway, so I'm not too concerned about it. Let's think. For the lower lash line, well, I know I'm gonna take Terra really close to my bottom lash line and just kind of connect that on the outer corner. And then I'll just grab a little bit of Rhodonite, which was that rosier matte shade, to blend that out. And then I think I'm gonna repeat the same shimmers on my lower lash line, but I am gonna use a brush with a little bit of NYX glitter primer just so I can have a more precise application. So just a little bit of glitter primer on either side. And then I'm gonna take Crystal, which is that lighter bluey purpley pink one. To meet up with the mattes. And then on the very inner corner, I'm just gonna take some more rose quartz, which seems a little bit more flaky and powdery than some of the other shimmers too. Just to tie all of that together. All right, so that is the finished look. I think if I was wearing this on the day-to-day, I would just take that first lid shade Earth-like all over my lid and call it quits, because I think that on its own makes for a really nice, like, neutral, spicy neutral, if you will, kind of a look. But I think it is an interesting combination altogether. I am gonna run and go put on some mascara, and then I'll come back to show you the final look. All right, I am back with mascara on. The mascara I've been loving recently is the Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Extensions, because I still get lots of volume and length, but it doesn't smudge on me, which is great. I also touched up my blush because I felt like I might have been getting a little bit washed out by these lights, and I feel like this shade actually pairs really well with the eye look. This is Phytosurgence Fume, which is kind of a cooler, mauvey, neutral, dusty pink. And then on my lips, I just have on the Summer Fridays Lip Butter Balm in the shade Vanilla Beige, just keeping it very low-key today. I want to turn my lights a little bit just so you might be able to see the actual color payoff of these shadows a little bit differently. I know these lights in some ways help you see better and in some ways wash things out, so I want to make sure you're getting an accurate depiction of how the eye look is actually looking. So here is with all the lights on, and here is with the lights turned away so that I'm not in such direct lighting. So first impressions of the What's Up Beauty Geodes palette are good. I really enjoyed working with this palette. I am one of those weird people who gets very excited about matte eyeshadows, so for some reason I'm like even more excited about the mattes than I am about the shimmers, even though the shimmers are beautiful. I just really enjoyed working with this matte formula. It blended seamlessly. I absolutely love the colors and the tones that they chose for this palette. So that's just my weird matte obsession coming through, but obviously the shimmers are stunningly gorgeous. I think For the most part, they are that kind of flakier, really tiny glitter, sparkly topper sort of a texture. But as you can see, with a little bit of NYX glitter primer, I was able to build them up quite a bit too. So I do like that versatility because I can totally see myself putting one of these matte shades all over the lid and then using one of the shimmers as just a little bit of sparkle through the center of my lid or something, as well as going a little bit more full impact and coverage with the shimmers like I did today for a more dramatic look. In my look today, I used all of the mattes except for the green that's called Clay, and I used 1, 2, 3 of the shimmers. So there are still 4 shimmers that I haven't tested on the eyes yet, but I will keep testing this palette and maybe I can update you on my thoughts in a future video. So I definitely look forward to playing more with this palette, but so far I have to say it definitely lives up to my expectations and to the hype. I am not disappointed at all. I think this is a really, really fun color story and a really nice formula to work with. If you have this palette and you've played with it and found some combinations that you really love, please let me know in the comments down below because I would love to try out your eyeshadow look. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed seeing me play with a new brand to me. I would definitely be interested to try any of the other What's Up Beauty eyeshadow palettes that they launch in the future, or the other eyeshadow palette that they already have in their collection. I believe it's called the Desert Monsoon palette, if I'm not mistaken. If you have that one and you love it, please let me know in the comments too. I really like the way that this look ended up turning out. It feels very wearable and very me, but still fun and dramatic, which is what we love. So that is everything for today, my loves. Please give the video a like if you liked it, and if you'd like to stick around and see my next upload, don't forget to subscribe. My next video should be up in the next couple of days, so until then, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!